There's no more doubting the college football season is upon us. With ESPN pumping out their normal fluffy stuff and fan bases already turning on each other, having a bunch of peeing contests to beat each other down over a minor injury bug.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at AllDayOState. Today, we're brought to you by Gametime Tickets. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Make sure you get in on the ticket buying action today as you get set to watch the Cowboys win a Big 12 title and end up in the CFP. In order to do that, we should have all hands on deck, and not to be put off as some kind of clickbait type stuff. I'll just say right off the top, Ollie Gordon, his injury, pretty daggone minor, right? A little bit of a hip issue. Might miss a couple of weeks. There's a decent possibility that he could push through and end up playing in week 1 versus SDSU. We'll talk about that more at the end. But I just, it's crazy to see that the fan base, our fan base, was trying to rip each other apart and call each other names and this exclusive club and that exclusive club and you guys are dumb and this and that and the other. It's absolutely wild that Willie's Foosball put something out that was 100% legitimate and accurate. And then other people took it and ran with it, and they took it miles away from what he'd initially brought up. And then you heard conversations of ACL tear, and then it was a mild ACL tear. And then I don't know where all that crap came from. But what I do know is the hip injury is not that big of a deal. He should miss a couple of weeks, could miss a few, but highly unlikely. So now that we got that out of the way, let's talk about the fact that Ollie Gordon is an All-American according to ESPN's preseason watch list, which is obviously a good thing, but it's not all good. Okay, so let's break down this thing here from ESPN in regards to the All-Americans beginning of the season at quarterback. Carson Beck from Georgia. The starting, his backup, second-team All-American, Dylan Gabriel, Oregon. Starting running back, Ollie Gordon, Oklahoma State. His backup, the second-team All-American, Taj Brooks out of Texas Tech. The number 2 starting running back, Marion Hampton out of North Carolina. His backup, second-teamer, will be Quinshon Judkins from Ohio State, formerly of Ole Miss. Wide receiver 1, Luther Burden III out of Mizzou. I don't believe in Mizzou. I think Brady Cook's okay. But I will admit that Luther Burden is a bad mamma jamma. His backup being Tez Johnson out of Oregon. The next wide receiver up is Teteroa McMillan, the Big 12 Arizona Wildcat, backed up by Torrey Horton out of Colorado State. The starting tight end, Colston Loveland out of Michigan. His backup, Brant Kukututi out of Utah. Starting tackle, Will Campbell, LSU. His backup, Ariante Ezere, Minnesota. Guard, Tate Ratledge, Georgia. His backup, Donovan Jackson, Ohio State. Center, Parker Brailford, Alabama. His backup, Cooper May, Tennessee. The other guard, Tyler Booker, Alabama. Backup, Luke Kandra, Cincinnati. How about that? The other tackle, Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas, with his backup being Emory Jones out of LSU. The all-purpose player, of course, Travis Hunter out of Colorado. Defensive end, James Pierce, Tennessee. His backup, Abdul Carter, Penn State. Then you go to the other defensive end spot, and you're going to have Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M, who just recently transferred out of Purdue, I believe it was. Defensive tackle, Mason Graham, Michigan. His backup, Tyleek Williams, Ohio State. The other defensive tackle, Deion Walker, Kentucky. His backup, Peter Woods, Clemson. Then you go on down a little bit, and this is where we're about to have some problems here. Starter linebacker, Barrett Carter, Clemson. Okay, cool. His backup, Jason Henderson, Old Dominion. Got it. The next linebacker, Danny Stutsman, the Boomer Gooners. Now, this is part of the fluff, right? Of course, whenever you look up and down this list, Well, okay, we'll finish. The other linebacker held Perkins, LSU. His backup, Jay Higgins, Iowa. The corners, Will Johnson, Michigan. Benjamin Morrison, Notre Dame, backed up by Denzel Burke, Ohio State. Sebastian Castro from Iowa. Safety, Malachi Starks, Georgia. His backup, Dylan Theinman out of Purdue. Safety, Caleb Downs, Ohio State. His backup, Xavier Watts, Notre Dame. Kicking specialist, Graham Nicholson, Alabama. Punter, Alex Mastromano, Florida State. And the returner, Zachariah Branch out of USC. So let's go back up to the ridiculousness here. This is the fluffy stuff that we're talking about. Whenever you look up and down the board, of course, it's going to be SEC, Big 12, ACC, SEC, Big 12, Big 10, SEC, SEC, Big 12, SEC, Big 10, SEC, ACC, SEC, Big 10, Independent, SEC, Big 10, SEC, ACC, and Big 10 again. So, of course, that's to be expected. But for our specific purposes, we're going to narrow in here on Danny Stutsman. Ladies and gentlemen, can somebody out here please tell me how a guy that wasn't number one in the Big 12 in literally virtually almost anything whatsoever leaves the Big 12, which is clearly not viewed in high regard by ESPN. But how does somebody who's barely top three in a decent amount of categories last season in the Big 12 leave the Big 12, the conference that's just, average, a little above average? How does he leave that conference and magically automatically get better? How do you have less tackles than Nick Martin? You have less sacks than Nick Martin, less tackles for loss. The only metric, less sacks, less interceptions. The only metric that Danny Stutsman is above Nick Martin in anything is forced fumbles, and he's only up on Nick Martin by one. So again, how does a dude who has 140 tackles and almost 40 tackles or 36 tackles more than Danny Stutsman, who, by the way, wasn't even second place in the Big 12, he is the representative here because he's in the SEC. I think Danny Stutsman's a good ball player. But watching the difference between him and Nick Martin last year was laughable. Other than size, there was nothing that was physically tangible available to see with the eyeball test that said that Danny Stutsman was as good as Nick Martin. Not even close to being better. But this is the ESPN fluffy stuff. We get it. They've got to pour in the SEC dollar bills, so they've got to prop them up as much as physically possible. You did see a couple ACC dudes. You did see a handful of Big Ten teams. But once again, this is the beast feeding the machine. That beast is ESPN, and they're also the machine, ironically enough. So they get to benefit by propping up people like Danny Stutsman, even though statistically and visibly he wasn't even the best linebacker in the Big 12 or the second best linebacker in the Big 12. That's there's several statistics, right? Like sacks. There's 2 Cowboys, 2 UFC dudes, 2 Houston dudes, multiple Texas dudes, all ahead of somebody like a Danny Stutsman at OU. So OU has a somewhat decent season, a pretty good season by most metrics, but they weren't as good as Oklahoma State. And their best linebacker is not even as good as our best linebacker. It's crazy. If Danny Stutsman was on campus in Stillwater, Oklahoma, he would not start over Nick Martin. There's no way in the world it would happen. And if Kendall Daniels has a easier time diagnosing the plays and being able to react visibly, his eye discipline in the backfield to catch the running back and hit the right hole, if that happens, then I think Kendall Daniels is likely to end the season better than Danny Stutsman. Again, I think Danny's a good ball player, but statistically, visibly, on film, there's nothing that indicates that Danny Stutsman is better or even as good as Nick Martin. Yet here we are. So ESPN, congratulations. You're doing your daggone thing, and you're not even trying to hide it, which is, it's a thing, right? It's a thing. So good on you, I guess. So we'll talk a little bit about injuries and how we did some things last year that are obviously massive for Oklahoma State's, turnaround on the season and kind of how that's affecting us now. But before we do that, I have to remind the fine folks out here, it is time to get ready for Cowboy football. And as you're seeing, this whole deal is selling out faster than they can print tickets. So you're going to have to get on this thing pretty daggone quick. But Gametime is here for you. That's the reason we're telling you about Gametime right now. It is the authorized ticket marketplace of several things, including Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer you get to the first hit, the pitch, or the first safety squeeze, whatever it is. And then even up to an hour after the event has started, the deals just keep getting better. All you have to do is go inside the app now and see all of the extra stuff that they have available for you, like the flash deals, which save you with the exclusive in-app deal on select seats of the game or event of your choice. The zone deals allow you to choose a section, and the Gametime will actually pick the seats. With the lowest price guarantee, we'll credit you back 110% of the difference if you find it better. It ain't going to happen. And you need to take the guesswork out of buying at Major League Baseball and every other ticket as you prepare for Cowboy football season. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, make sure that you create that account and redeem that code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. Words are hard for me. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, the lowest prices guaranteed. Right, it is never guaranteed that you're going to make it through a season without injuries, right? That's part of the gig. When you have 139 players at your disposal, it does make it a little bit easier to manage. But, of course, whenever it's somebody like an Ollie Gordon, it is naturally going to have the world by storm. How it got the way that it got, I don't know. I will say this, though, begrudgingly. What happened yesterday might be the reason that Mike Gundy don't talk about injuries. Because if somebody tries to, just put enough out there to let everybody know that there's a little bit of an issue, it snowballs and turns into this massive catastrophe of an event. And then, it just causes a bunch of unnecessary stuff, which leads me to this. Is it unnecessary to be doing an exorbitant amount of shell or thud work? Right, shells, typically when you do a walkthrough or you're getting prepared to get on your pads. So the first, few weeks, maybe you'll just wear a helmet only. That's a shell. Then you'll have thud stuff where you do want to induce full contact, but you're not taking them all the way to the ground, wrapping up and all that fun jazz. So it's full contact, but after you make that contact, you let go. I mean, you wrap up, but then you let go. You don't take them all the way down to the ground. Whenever you're trying to restore the health of a team, I can see that as a very necessary and viable option. Well, last season, that was how the season began, right? We were doing a lot of this, keep everybody protected, keep everybody safe, and do a lot of, thud and shell type of work. Well, we had to do a lot of install, and then at some point in time, not quite halfway through the season, but before that, so let's say after Iowa State, we went to screw it. Mike Gundy said, we're just going to do full on, all out, tackling to the ground, full speed, no holds barred. We need this toughness. We need to develop some tenacity, a sense of urgency. So that's what happened last year. And then by the time the Big 12 title game rolled around, you did see that, we were fairly beat up. Not so beat up that the score should have been as lopsided as it was, but we were beat up enough that, it was going to take us playing a really phenomenal game in Texas, kind of playing bad. And Texas did not play bad, so we ended up in the situation that we were in. But because of that and how there was a very, very obvious uptick from the entirety of the locker room and the team on the field and the coaching staff, I assumed with 100 and almost 40 players and this insane amount of seniors and redshirt juniors and juniors available that we would do the same thing this year. I assumed because we had so much depth and so much talent and so much senior leadership that I didn't think we would get complacent and overlook a team like South Dakota State University. But I also thought that this was a perfect time to have a spring game to showcase all of these guys, right? The spring game's probably going to look pretty good when you got 35 some odd seniors and 16 juniors. Okay, we didn't get that. That's fine. But I almost I don't know how to word this. I'm slightly bothered by an exorbitant amount of doing a lot of the shill and thud stuff. On one hand, it makes sense. You've got a lot of seniors, you got a lot of leaders, so you don't have to work on install nearly half as much. So it does give the opportunity to, give some of the younger guys more work. But if you're a younger guy and more often than not, you're asked to go full speed, full speed, full speed, full speed. Stop real quick. Full speed, full speed, full speed, full speed, full speed. Oh, slow down. Don't hit the star running back or the star quarterback or the star receiver, whatever it is. It's pretty difficult to go from full speed, I'm going to tear you in half, to full speed, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, I don't want to hit that person too hard. So in my opinion, I think it's fair to at least ask the question, could too much shell and too much thud be a hindrance, like in this situation? If you've got guys that are trying to avoid full-on contact, that's typically when things like this can happen. And somebody lands awkwardly. It doesn't have to be a direct hit. It doesn't have to be a big hit. It can just be something as simple as trying to stop momentum. See, words are so hard for me today, I tell you. It could be as easy as trying to stop momentum and ending up putting yourself and the dude you're running up to in an awkward position. And when you got guys this big, this strong, this fast, all trying to shut it down at the same time, of course, there's going to be hiccups, there's going to be hangups, and there's going to be injuries that do in fact happen. But there's a large difference between an injury and being hurt. But I correlate a lot of this to, like last season with Ollie Gordon, right? At first it was, he was probably going to miss a couple weeks, right? Could be 3-ish weeks. Now we're hearing there's a possibility that he could, in fact, be ready to go for game 1 versus South Dakota State University. If that were the case, I mean, that's great. But I personally do have some reservations, just like I have some questions. Why are we not doing a spring game? Why are we not going full speed, tackle to the ground, whenever you do have this level of leadership and seniority and continuity across the board? Now, I understand you don't want to be reckless, right? But it's pretty difficult to go from like a reckless abandon, throw my body around, right? We've heard Gundy talk about that. To be very, very, very successful on defense, you kind of got to be willing to just throw your body out there and let whatever happens, happens. I mean, he's talked about this with somebody like Nick Martin. It's a perfect example. He does not care what happens to him. He's just there to dive, leap, jump, scrape, crawl, whatever he needs to do to make the play. So maybe some full send practices is not always a bad thing, because maybe when you're asking dudes this big, powerful, fast, strong, to shut it down and to avoid being violent, I think at times it can put us at a more disadvantaged or disadvantageous situation. I don't even know if that's a word. I might have just made that word up. I know advantageous is a word. I know dis is a word. So I assume you could throw them together, just like we can throw together the conversation of what is happening right now at running back, because clearly Ollie Gordon's not taking the RB1 reps this week. He might next week. I don't see that as a necessity, but it is what it is. So who's going to step up and take more load? Of course, we've been hammering home Trent Howland. We've been hammering home Sesi Vailahi being more advanced already than we thought he was going to be, which is why we brought in AJ Green from Arkansas. Well, I can say that yesterday, Rodney Fields, the true freshman out of BTW Booker T. Washington, he did get quite a bit more carries. So clearly, if there's somebody that we're kind of, preparing to get ready to be waiting in the wings for the next round of carries, it appears to be Rodney Fields over Jaden Allen Hendricks. And this does make a crap ton of sense, because when you have somebody 6'2", 225 pounds like Ollie Gordon, and then the backup is 6'3", 242 pounds, and Trent Howland, you got to have a lightning guy, which we have in Sesi Vailahi. We could have another lightning guy with some power in Rodney Fields. The development of Jaden Allen Hendricks does not need to be rushed, not now, not ever. clearly it appears as though Rodney Fields is going to be the candidate to receive a little bit more carries in the time that Ollie Gordon's out for a little bit. This does kind of, transcend a little bit beyond that to the wide receiver room. How is this going to benefit the wide receiver room? Well, we're still going to lean on the run, probably a pretty significant amount. And South Dakota State is a good football team that has won 29 games in a row, and they have won back-to-back FCS national titles, but they also lost like 12, 13-ish starters off of last year's ball club. Their quarterback's back. They've got a running back back. They've got a couple defenders back. They've got a receiver back, but by and large, they are replacing a lot. I think they're going to be replacing too much to stop somebody like Trent Howland all daggone game for 4 quarters. I just don't see it. I just don't get it. I mean, their biggest dudes are going to have a hard time even tackling Trent Howland. Again, I don't think this is a knock on SDSU. This is a fact that they're kind of bringing in a younger team than normal, going up against a Cowboy squad that is so deep, we can have a ridiculous rotation, including at wide receiver. We've been hearing and seeing a lot of AyoShotomide-King continually climbing up the depth chart and having a legitimate battle with DeJon Stribling. So seeing those two rotate is going to be worth the price of admission. Seeing how often we get 4 wide receiver and 5 wide receiver sets out there is going to be worth the price of admission. Seeing what Trent Howland can do, Sesi Vailahi, and more importantly, this defense. That's the one benefit I will say to SDSU having a returning quarterback, returning running back, a returning wide receiver is the fact that it is going to give our defense a pretty decent challenge. I think on the other side of the ball is where the challenge will be a little bit more lopsided, and that is our O-line versus their D-line. That's our linebackers, our tight ends, our fullbacks against their linebackers and their safeties. I'll take our wide receivers against their corners all day, every day. So if they do load the box and keep with the same Ollie Gordon game plan, as they probably should for Trent Howland, then this could be a game where we see a plethora of wide receivers that do some stuff. Getting Gavin Freeman, Brendan Presley, DeJuan Lofton on the field at the same time seems to be something that is pretty important to them. Having the applicable guys like Kyler Pearson and Zane Flores that can athletically do a little bit more than everybody else to give multiple different looks. These are the things that we needed to see. And I'm trying to implore people to understand that maybe this is a great time to use more wide receiver than any point in time last year. This is a good time to see what Tyler Foster can do, to see the development, the next level for Quentin Stewart, to see visibly what all of this talk is about Josh Ford, the freshman, 6'5", 245-pound tight end from Stillwater High School is all about. So if Ollie Gordon does play game 1, I would say there's probably a 40% chance he does play week 1 against SDSU. But it does bring me to the final point. Why would we play him week 1? If he's even 50% or 65%, ready to go, I would prefer us to not risk it. I mean, let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. But if it's supposed to be a few weeks of healing, why risk it? Why rush it? Like we did Texas, right? His ankle injury was definitely worthy of him not playing, but the day-to-day designation made it to where it was kind of his call, and he was willing to throw on 75 pounds of tape to play the game. It didn't work out because he got ankle picked in like the 6th or 7th run of the game, so he was out pretty early, but they let him make that decision. If you can tape it up and tough it out, you're not going to catastrophically ruin anything, so you can get out there. And so he said, okay, fine, I'm getting out there. Well, I believe this is kind of a similar ordeal. The differentiation, in my opinion, should be, though, the protection side of things. This is partially how we convinced Trent Howland to come on board. Same reason we were able to convince A.J. Green to come on board and be a backup, to be able to keep him healthy and to get the maximum amount of his NFL draft grade. He wasn't going to get as many carries. We weren't going to put him in as many positions to get dinged up and pay the insurance, right? I'm pretty sure that if Ollie Gordon were to have a career-ending injury tomorrow, Oklahoma State or something within Oklahoma State, I don't know if it's OSU directly, but somewhere in that NIL, OSU, all that fun stuff, there's insurance policies. We have an insurance policy on Ollie Gordon. I'm pretty sure that would equal him getting paid what he would get paid as a projected top 20 pick type of thing right now. So if you know that you've got the insurance, but you also know that, he's looking to chase the Berries and the Terrys and the Thurmans of the world, don't even waste him for SDSU. And I know this is going to sound disrespectful, right? And SDSU fans might clip this somewhere. I implore you to do so. Because, yes, I am saying you are a very good ball club, but you're not good enough to stop Trent Howland for 4 quarters. I don't think you're collectively deep enough to stop Sesi Vailahi for 4 quarters. If we run 4 wide, 5 wide by the 4th quarter, I just don't see the depth of SDSU even being able to stay in the game. Could be wrong. I could be drinking way, way, way too much orange Kool-Aid. Because, again, when you're seeing stuff against your own dudes and they're all the same dudes from last year, I feel like you have a pretty good barometer on what it looked like last year, but it doesn't mean you have a good barometer on how good you're going to be. You just know that you're significantly better than last year. Well, I mean, the first few weeks of the season, we were running around punching ourselves in the throat repeatedly, so it wasn't very productive. Just because it looks different and looks far more advanced and everything is happening significantly faster, it doesn't mean that it's all going to translate to the field. Again, I'm not worried about any underestimation of SDSU. I think the leadership, the veteran presence in the locker room has everybody dialed in. We are ready for the Jackrabbits. We know they're not going to lay over. We know that they're probably probably better than a lot of teams that we play in non-con traditionally. They can be. They're better in South Alabama. I can almost guarantee you that. I just don't think they're even as deep, right? Remember, South Alabama had some big-time Power 4 starting dudes here and there. Now, although South Dakota State does have two dudes currently, might even have 3, on NFL preseason rosters, right, with a couple that have an opportunity to make it, those guys are gone. If those guys were still here, right, and you're not replacing double-digit starters, then I think then the conversation of maybe not having Ollie ticks up a couple notches. But I don't think that's the case. And Trent Howland is far better than most people are realizing. And again, Sesi is further along than we thought he would be right now. If we knew that Sesi was going to be where he is right now, I don't know that we would have brought in AJ Green. It would have been smart to. Just like it'd be smart to recruit the tar out of him to make sure that, he's one of the key contributors next year alongside everybody else like Jaden Allen Hendricks, Rodney Fields, to continue this potential RBU conversation. Because if you look in the NFL, there's a conversation to be had. But speaking of conversations, I reckon that's all we're going to have for this conversation here today. As always, I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here on Locked On Oklahoma State. Hey, for your second listen, guys, go check out Locked On TCU Horned Frogs. They got some interesting stuff going down in Fort Worth, and I think the recruiting is worth the watch, worth the listen. All righty, y'all. Thank you for being here. You could be anywhere, but you decided to be here. So I appreciate the regulators and the crazies out there that rock with this show. All righty, y'all. Until next time, you know the drill. Like it if you like the daggone thing. Dislike it if you don't. That's okay, too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe. Podcast and folks out there, you are the locomotive, the engine that makes this whole train go. So do what you do. Hit the stars, leave a review. I appreciate you. Later, taters.